Thank you, County Line Ramblers, for that wonderful introduction. Today we're going to be talking to you about solving the United States Air Force's pilot shortage problem. Slide, please. Here's a brief overview of what we're going to go over. Initially, we're going to talk about the issues concerning the current system, so Pilot Training Next, and our retention problems. Next, we're going to frame the decision, you talking about stakeholder values and characteristics of the old system and the new system that we find important to include. Next, we'll be talking about the measures, the qualities of the new alternatives and how we use those to make our decision. Then we'll hit a deterministic analysis along with life cycle costing. And finally, we'll detail our own decision. Slide, please.
The fundamental issues with the current pilot training system is that we cannot recruit enough pilots to fulfill the mission needs of the Air Force. UPT cannot handle the strain that we are putting on it, leading to a backlog of pilots in waiting to get into their seats, and it's just not working. Our second issue is retainment. We cannot keep our experienced pilots in enough to train the next generation and fulfill the advanced mission needs of the Air Force, leading to a need to convince our pilots to stay in. Slide, please.
So referring to the decision, we have two parts. One is addressing the issue, and two is identifying the stakeholders. Stakeholders include all citizens of the United States, all military members, and all government and political officials, mainly because everyone there benefits from the Air Force's ability to ensure that we accomplish our national security objectives. And then the four parts of the issue come with one, the actual issue, which is the fact that we do not have enough pilots leads to a high-stress environment of pilots not being able to recover enough or fly more stories than they should be, along with the fact that we are not able to attain the number of stories we need to achieve our objectives. Part two is the United States Air Force pilot being heavily trained, more so than the average pilot, and that training forcing them to be hard to replace. Part three is the fact that the issue needs to be solved now, because if it's not solved now, we face issues with achieving our national security objectives. And the last part is retaining measures, where experienced pilots are no longer in the Air Force if we cannot retain them for over 10 years. Next slide, please.
So these right here are the characteristics or the measures that we're using to quantify our alternatives. So we start off simplicity. Is the new system going to be simplistic enough to implement? The user capacity is how many people it can fit into the system at one time. Retention deals with what he just discussed about keeping pilots in the Air Force after graduation. Production is similar to user capacity. It refers to the amount of people that we can push through the program. Experience refers to a level of experience that pilots need after graduation to reach certain qualifications for moving forward in their careers. Attrition simply refers to the washout rate during pilot training, and happiness rating, which is composed of a few sub-level characteristics, and each of these we use to judge and get a good grasp of what our alternatives are and how much value they hold for us. Slide, please.
So here we have our data results. As you can see from our sensitivity analysis of user capacity, the Pilot Training Next solution not only has the greatest value in relation to each of our alternatives, but it keeps its value the best out of each alternative that we have in relation to more user capacity. In our value function component chart, we have each one of our alternatives here. On the x-axis and on the y-axis, we have its value in relation to each one of its measures. As you can see here, the green blocks sort of dominate this value function component chart, indicating that the retention rate affects each one of these alternatives the most. However, with our alternative number 5, which is having more flights for majors and up, it affects this alternative the most. Slide, please. In our cost versus value scatter plot, you can see that we circled here are dominating alternatives, but this one, the blue dot, is the more dominating one, which indicates that the Pilot Training Next solution is the most dominant in this graph, as well as the graph previous. Along our efficiency frontier right here, you can see that at the pinnacle of it, we have our option for more flights for majors and up, indicating that it is a great solution, not only for retainment rate, but also for cost versus value. Slide, please.
With uncertainty, we had a triangular distribution being made with our min, max, and most likely values with respect to cost. This is basically compared with a random set of numbers to create an output, and that output would help create a distribution of what we could expect for our value to vary at. Other parts of uncertainty include the price of just overall programs, the amount of time it would take to push through certain pilots in pilot training, and then finally, the amount of stories we could guarantee to field grade officers due to the fact that needs of the Air Force always come first. Next slide, please.
Right here, we have a basic breakdown for the initial 10-year life cycle cost for all our alternatives. Given the nature of this project, there was a lot of variation that went into approximating these costs. We used engineering builds, top-down and bottom-up approaches, but primarily, we compared our alternatives to already existing programs to try and determine what the actual cost will be, leading to a more relationship-style cost with each alternative being compared to the other, rather than a accurate, this is what this will cost sort of chart. Next slide, please.
So for our results and how we came up with our decision, first we identified our main issues, which were getting students through the UPT program quickly, as well as getting pilots after UPT to their experience status quick enough so that they can teach the next generation. So these were our biggest issues. So because of those, we came up with objectives to remedy these issues. First one being to simplify UPT, making it quicker for students to get through UPT, as well as making it easier for students to graduate UPT. Second one being retainment. Basically, cutting down the shortages of pilots we have through increasing retainment rate so that more pilots are staying in to teach the next generation to cut our shortage. Because of these objectives, we came up with two solutions. One being Pilot Training Next. Pilot Training Next not only keeps its value in relation to its cost the best out of all of our alternatives, but keeps its value over user capacity the greatest, and that's kind of what we're looking for moving forward with having more people in the UPT program, so we want to keep our value as great as we can. That being said, we also need to address the issue of retainment and to increase retainment. Our solution for that is to have officers of rank major and up have more flights so that they can reach that experience status quicker to teach the next generation of pilots. And since Pilot Training Next itself doesn't address that, we decided to make our conclusion a hybrid solution of the two. Next slide.
If you have any further questions, please reach out to our project liaison, and she will forward those questions to the project team. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful Air Force Day.
Nice.